Rejected Moon. Episode 5. What the Light Left. Written by Mia. I came back to myself on my knees in the dead circle, and the first thing I understood was that the morning had changed color. The light had gone out of me the way a wave goes back out, all at once, leaving everything it had touched rearranged. The iron gray horses were gone, bolted, 3 pale shapes already small on the East Road. 2 of the riders had gone down and not got up. They lay where the light had thrown them, very still, and I would not look at them too closely. Not then, not ever. The cook fires of Greywater Hollow were burning tall and wild, fed by something that wasn't wood. And 300 wolves who had come out that morning to watch the council collect a no-house Omega were pressed back against the lodges in a silence, so total I could hear my own heart, and on every single face turned toward me was the one thing I had wanted my whole life and now would have given anything to unsummon. They were looking at me, all of them, at last, and there was no looking through left in any of it. Only fear, naked and absolute, the fear you feel for a thing you cannot name and cannot fight and cannot, any longer, pretend is beneath your notice. I tried to stand and couldn't. Whatever the light was, it had been drawn out of some deep cellar of me I hadn't known was there, and it had taken its rent on the way out. My hands shook, my vision swam at the edges, and there was a hollow ringing where the warmth in my chest had been, like a bell still trembling after the last toll. I have since learned that this is the cost, that the power is not free, that the moon's blood is a loan and never a gift, and that it always, always comes to collect.
But I didn't know that then.
Then I only knew that I had done something enormous and terrible and entirely beyond my understanding, that I had reached for the ember trick and been answered by the sun, and that the world I surfaced into was not going to let me be small ever again, whatever it cost me, whatever I wanted. The warden was still standing. That was the part that mattered, the part one would carry east with me. The pale blade was gone, melted or flung, and the administrative calm had been burned clean off that face, but the warden was on their feet at the edge of the circle, swaying and looking at me with an expression I had never expected to put on the thing that hunted my mother, recognition that had turned, finally, into belief. "It's true," the warden said, hoarse, to no one, to the morning. "After all of it, it's true." And then, gathering the ruin of that iron control, "This changes nothing, Moonborn. There are more of us than there is of you. There have always been more." But the warden was backing away as they said it, backing toward the East Road and the bolted horses, and we both knew that this changes nothing was the thing you say precisely when everything has changed. And Cale's hand was still around my wrist. He had not let go. Through all of it, the light, the bell, the thing that had unmade 2 armed men, Cale Greywater had kept his grip on my wrist, his body still half between me and where the blade had been, and when I turned my head his face was inches from mine, gray eyes wide and wrecked, and I understood that the word he'd snarled at the warden, the mine, was still hanging in the air between us, unwithdrawn, impossible. "Ren," he breathed, "what are you?" It was the second time he'd asked me that in this same circle, and I had a different answer now, and it cost me everything I had to give it. "Something you threw away," I said, "in front of everyone. Let go of my wrist, Cale." He didn't. Not at first. And then a sound came out of the eastern treeline that emptied the breath from 300 lungs at once. A howl, vast and close and furious, the howl of something very large that had run a very long way and arrived a heartbeat too late. And Cale's hand fell from my wrist as every warrior in Greywater turned toward the trees and reached for weapons they had to know would be useless. Ronan came out of the forest at a dead run, and he was magnificent and terrible, and he was not going to be in time to do anything but stand in the wreckage with the rest of us. He shifted as he crossed the circle, the great silver wolf folding up into the man between one stride and the next, the way I would learn the strong ones could, and he reached me and dropped his knees in the bloody dirt and took my face in his hands, and he did not care, visibly did not care, that 300 Greywater wolves and a swaying warden were watching the Alpha King of Nightreach kneel to a no-house Omega. "You blew the whistle," he said. His pale eyes raked over me, cataloging damage. "You blew the whistle, and I was 3 valleys out, and I felt the whole sky go white, and I have never, Ren."
Ren.
"Are you hurt? Tell me you're not hurt." "I'm not hurt. It was even almost true. You came." I said I'd come from wherever I was, faster than anything with 4 legs had a right to. His jaw was tight with something that wasn't quite anger. I was not fast enough. "I felt you do this from 3 valleys away, and I ran the whole way knowing I'd arrived to find out whether the world still had you in it. And I am never doing that again. Do you understand me? I am never again going to be 3 valleys away when the Argent Council comes for the last of the Moonborn." Nightreach. Kale's voice cut across him, low and dangerous, and I watched Ronan go very still, and then rise, slowly, and turn, and the 2 of them faced each other across me for the first time. The Alpha, who had thrown me away, and the Alpha King, who had crossed 3 valleys to kneel, and the air between them was a blade. "Greywater," Ronan said. He looked Kale up and down, unhurried, and his voice when it came was soft and absolutely lethal. "I know who you are. I was in your amphitheater. I watched you cut the moon's own blood loose under the open sky to save your little title, and I watched her not break, and I have thought about you every night since, Kale Greywater, with a great deal of attention." He took 1 step. "And now I find you with your hand on her wrist after, like a man who's changed his mind. You don't get to change your mind. That's the thing about what you did. It was a door and you slammed it, and the slamming is permanent. So take your hand off her and your mind out of the air because you rejected the right to either in public, and there are no second choosings." I watched Kale take that, and I watched it land because it was true, and he knew it was true. But Kale Greywater had buried a hard father and worn a title like armor for 8 months, and he did not bend easily, even when he should. "You weren't there for the years before the moon," he said low. "You saw 1 night. I saw 19. I watched her carry water and eat in the gaps and make herself small enough to survive a pack that didn't deserve her, and I told myself it was kindness to leave her unseen, and I was wrong, and it is the great wrong of my life, and I'll answer for it till I die." His gray eyes did not leave Ronan. "But don't you stand in my hollow, King, and tell me what I'm allowed to feel about her. You crossed 3 valleys for a legend. I'm grieving a person. They are not the same thing, and we both know which one she'd rather be." It was, God help me, the truest and most dangerous thing he could have said, because it was aimed straight at the fear Mara had planted in me at the spring. The difference between being wanted for what you are and being wanted for who you are, and I saw Ronan feel the hit land. I want to tell you I stood up between them and ended it with my own 2 feet, the way the woman I was becoming would have. But the truth is I was emptied out, scraped hollow by whatever the light had cost me, and it was Mara who ended it. Mara who came down into the dead circle, while 2 alphas squared up over the ruins and put her small body and her old voice between them like she'd been doing it her whole life. "Stop it, both of you. You magnificent idiots." She rounded on Ronan first, unafraid of the king of Nightreach in a way that told me she'd been unafraid of larger things. And you,
King.
you can court her or you can fight him, but you cannot do both in front of 300 terrified wolves and 2 council dead, so choose later. Then she turned to me, and her face changed, gentled, and the fear in it was the worst thing I'd seen all morning.
Child.
Listen to me, because we don't have long, and what happens in the next hour decides the rest of it. The warden is leaving. Do you understand what that means? It doesn't mean you won. It means they're going to come back, and not with 3 riders. You lit a fire visible from the far side of the mountains this morning. Every Argent in the world felt it. By the next moon, this valley is going to have more iron gray in it than grass, and gray water, her voice cracked. Gray water cannot survive being where the moonborn was found. You have to go, Wren.
Today. Now.
Not because they're casting you out. Because the only way to keep this poor, frightened pack alive is to not be standing in it when the council comes back counting. And there it was. The thing I'd refused at the spring 3 nights ago, when I'd told Ronan I'd leave Greywater on my own feet, in my own time, because I chose it. The choosing had arrived. It just didn't feel, the way they never do, like a choice at all. I said my goodbyes in an hour, and they were brief, because the only people in Greywater who would meet my eyes were the dead and the dying fire. Hesper wouldn't. Tessa wouldn't. The elders gathered in their gray knot and looked at the ground. 19 years of being furniture, and in the end the hollow let me go exactly the way it had kept me, by not quite seeing me leave. I found I didn't mind as much as I'd thought I would. You cannot be exiled from a fire you were never allowed to sit at. Cale came to the boundary path as I was leaving.
Of course he did.
You're going with him. Not a question. He stood in the morning light with his shoulders set against that wind only he could feel, and he looked, for the first time since the choosing, like a young man and not an alpha, to Nightreach, with the king who knelt. I'm going where the council won't burn 300 people to get to me. I shouldered my mother's pendant and Ronan's whistle and the small bundle of a life that had never amounted to much. Don't flatter yourself that this is about him, Cale.
Or about you.
For once in my life, I'm doing a thing because it's the thing, and not because of which man wants me near or far. He flinched at that, and I was glad, and then I was ashamed of being glad, which is the whole story of loving someone who has hurt you. I shouldn't have said it, he said quietly. In the circle.
Mine.
I had no right. Ronan's correct about that, the bastard. A muscle moved in his jaw. But I'm not going to pretend I didn't mean it, Wren, because you've had enough lies. I meant it. I have meant it since the moon lit you brighter than anything I'd ever seen, and I was too much my father's son to do anything but put it out. I'll spend the rest of my life knowing exactly what I threw away. That's mine to carry. His voice went rough. I wanted you to leave knowing the rejection was the lie, and the mine was the true thing. Even if I lost the right to say it, especially because I did. I looked at him for a long moment, the man who had broken me in front of everyone and then put his body between me and a blade, and I understood that I was going to carry him east whether I wanted to or not, a splinter under the ribs for a long time. There was a version of the morning where I told him, where I said, I meant it too, you fool. I've meant it since before the moon. I meant it carrying your pack's laundry and eating in the gaps. And that is exactly why I can't stay, because a love that grew in the dark where I made myself small is not a love I can afford to keep. I have to find out who I am in the light first, and I can't do that standing next to the man who only learned to see me the moment I stopped being safe to ignore. I had all of it ready, right there on my tongue. But some kindnesses are cruelties and some cruelties are kindnesses, and I had learned the difference the hard way, in a pack that specialized in the first kind. "Goodbye, Kale," I said. And I did the kindest cruel thing I had. I didn't tell him I'd meant it too. I walked to the trioline where Ronan waited, and I did not look back, because Mara had taught me that the moon only lights the door, and the walking through is the part that's yours, and because if I'd looked back at the only home I'd ever had, burning its wild fires under a sky I'd cracked open, I might not have had the strength to keep choosing. Ronan fell into step beside me, silver and quiet, asking nothing. The forest took us, and somewhere behind, in a valley that would never be safe again, a man stood on a boundary path carrying a word he'd thrown away too late, and somewhere ahead, 3 valleys east, a court I'd never seen waited for a queen who didn't know the first thing about being one. To be continued. That was episode 5 of Rejected Moon. If the moon has you now, the next episode is waiting. Subscribe so you don't lose the trail. The complete book is available on Amazon, and early episodes and bonus chapters are on my Patreon. Links are in the description.
I've Mia.
Thank you for listening.